If anyone ever believed the Chinese Communist Party was a stable institution, they likely never understood the true nature of power within its system. On the surface, it runs like a cold, disciplined steel machine, every decision seemingly unified and conflict-free. But beneath, it's a constant, silent civil war. At the heart of this political tragedy is the life-and-death struggle between Xi Jinping and the party's Princelings. Once considered blood brothers, now bitter rivals ready to strike fatal blows. The fierce power struggle among one of their own. Let's start with one thing clear. Xi Jinping is no outsider. He is a Princeling. The son of Xi Jinping, a veteran revolutionary and once a close ally of Mao Zedong, Xi carries the legacy of a founding figure of Communist China. But ironically, that legacy, along with the political turmoil his family endured during the Cultural Revolution, left Xi with a complex psyche. He bears the red bloodline, but was never fully embraced by the Princeling elite of his generation. In China, Princeling isn't just a sociological term, it's a political class. These are the children of senior revolutionaries, those who once shaped the destiny of China through guns, ideology, and at times ruthless tactics. For decades, power at the top of the party, particularly the general secretary role, was seen as a result of balance among major factions. The Jiang faction, the Youth League faction, and the Princelings. Each group had its own generals, assets, influence, and most importantly, revolutionary lineage. This uneasy power-sharing structure formed a kind of three-way equilibrium where no one could dominate. But Xi Jinping's unexpected rise broke that balance. When chosen to succeed Hu Jintao, many saw Xi as a compromise candidate. Not too close to Jiang, not loyal to the Youth League, and among Princelings, regarded as a poor relation with pedigree. Within that elite circle, hierarchies were clear. Whose father commanded troops, who just oversaw campaigns, who had Red Army credentials, and who came after Deng. Even Xi Jinping's background as a former bandit from Shanxi, later purged under Mao, marked the family as improper stock in Princeling eyes. Underrated, Xi chose to rise quietly. He endured, waited, then struck, not to share power, but to upend the board entirely. Once in control, he began a sweeping purge under the guise of anti-corruption, reminiscent of Mao-era rectification campaigns. The first to fall, Liu Yuan, son of former President Liu Shaoqi, a general once tipped to head the powerful General Political Department, a man with both pedigree and military clout to rival Xi. But Xi showed no mercy. One by one, key Princeling-affiliated generals like Liu Yazhou, Liu Shaozhang, Wu Shengli, Zhang Haidong, and Ma Xiaoqian were sidelined, demoted, or simply disappeared. Xi learned quickly and thoroughly. He knew one brutal truth. Unless he wiped out the Princelings, he could be ousted at any time. In the CCP, legitimacy comes from lineage, not merit. And as a half-blooded Red, Xi was always viewed with disdain by the true-born Princelings. He never forgot that. That fear drove him like a man cornered, willing to destroy anything, even former allies. What's striking is that Xi didn't rely on clever political games, no Jiang-style scheming, no Hu-style consensus building. He moved directly, decisively, and cut to the root, like a climber breaking each handhold behind him, ensuring no one could follow. That's how he rose fast, far, and now stands alone at the peak looking down on everyone. But the problem is, that peak isn't stable. The Red Prince's Counterstrike, a plot to overturn Xi before the 21st Party Congress. After Xi Jinping took power, many of his former backers quietly withdrew. Some grew resentful, others bided their time. But all understood one thing. Without the right moment, no one dared to resist. Until now. According to Professor Yuan Hongbing, a prominent political commentator and former insider now in exile, a secret meeting took place on June 13, 2025, during a closed-door commemoration of Chen Yun's 120th birthday. The gathering, composed of family insiders, had one goal. Xi Jinping must step down before the 21st Party Congress. Why? Because their anger isn't just about lost power. Xi violated the two sacred pillars of the Princeling elite, power sharing and global economic privilege. Mistake number 1, breaking the power-sharing pact. After the Cultural Revolution, senior party elders like Chen Yun, Ye Jianying, and Deng Xiaoping established an unwritten rule to prevent future civil wars within the CCP. Power would be rotated among revolutionary families, in other words, among different Princeling factions. No one was allowed to monopolize the throne as Mao once did. Leadership rotation, ensuring that the Zhao Han Li Liang families each had a turn, was key to internal stability. Xi didn't preserve that rule. He shattered it. Soon after rising to power, Xi began removing influential princelings, particularly in the military and security apparatus, traditionally strongholds of the second Red generation. In their place, he installed loyalists with no revolutionary lineage, such as Qi, Chen Miner, and Li Qiang. To the princelings, this wasn't just a political betrayal, it was a betrayal of the revolutionary legacy. Xi, once seen as one of their own, albeit reluctantly, had turned on them. He discarded allies like Wang Qishan once they outlived their usefulness, and even placed outsiders above the children of revolutionaries. It wasn't just a snub, it was a slap in the face to the CCP's hereditary system. Worse still, Xi consolidated absolute power, amending the constitution, removing term limits, and declaring himself leader for life, something even Mao failed to achieve after 1976. In a system built on fragile internal balance, Xi's centralization left the other factions, especially the princelings, with only two choices: fight back or face political extinction. They chose to fight. Mistake 2. Wolf warrior diplomacy, a threat to princeling fortunes. If Xi's political moves angered the princelings, his foreign policy terrified them. With his push for national revival and the China dream, Xi has brought China into open confrontation with the West, from the US-China trade war to tensions in the South China Sea, Taiwan, and India. His aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy, instead of elevating China's global influence, has increasingly isolated it, and that poses a direct threat to the trillions of dollars quietly moved abroad by princeling families over the years. They own real estate in California, investment funds in Singapore, bank accounts in Switzerland, hotel chains in Canada. These assets are registered under relatives, shell companies, or offshore trusts. But should the West impose sanctions, as they did on Russian oligarchs, those fortunes could vanish overnight. Xi isn't just gambling with his political life, he's gambling with the princelings' wallets. And that is unacceptable. To the Red aristocracy, power may come and go, but wealth must remain untouched. In short, the battle between Xi Jinping and the princelings has entered its second act, and this time, the Red princes are no longer staying silent. They won't return to Mao's era. They won't risk losing their wealth, and they no longer believe Xi, with his deep insecurities and unpredictable style, is fit to lead the CCP through a volatile, globalized world. And above all, they know this. If they don't act before the 21st Party Congress, it will be too late. Xi Jinping and the prophecy of the CCP's Gravedigger history has a strange sense of irony. The downfall of empires often begins with their most loyal sons. And in the case of the Chinese Communist Party, the man now being likened to its future gravedigger isn't a dissident, a protester from Hong Kong, or a foreign enemy, but Xi Jinping himself, the son of a revered revolutionary once expected to carry forward a tradition of balanced leadership. Why is that? To understand, we must look beyond politics, into Xi's deeply sensitive, conflicted, and wounded personality. Unlike many princelings raised in pride and security, Xi's early years were marked by humiliation and survival. His father, Xi Jinping, was purged during the Cultural Revolution. The family was exiled, and Xi spent years in the countryside, sleeping in caves, shoveling manure, and working as a laborer. As a youth, Xi was ostracized by peers, branded the son of a counter-revolutionary, and mocked by local officials as a child of black blood. These traumas didn't fade. They etched themselves into his political instincts, shaping a paradoxical character, proud toward outsiders, but deeply insecure among fellow princelings. He came to fear and resent those who reminded him of what he was not fully accepted to be. One of them. And once in power, he moved to eliminate anyone who mirrored that insecurity, not because they posed a direct threat, but because their very existence reflected a part of himself he could never confront. Xi doesn't appoint by merit or revolutionary lineage. His only criterion is absolute personal loyalty. Under his rule, those who rise are not seasoned generals or visionary thinkers, but obedient outsiders with no family legacy. Qi is the clearest example. Once seen as unorthodox within party circles, but promoted all the way to the Politburo Standing Committee because of unwavering loyalty. But people like Qi have no roots. When Xi stumbles, they'll be the first to be sacrificed, and that fuels Xi's own paranoia. He trusts no one, not even his closest allies. So now we see a strange picture. A man standing atop a party of 100 million, powerful enough to reshape Zhongnanhai itself, yet perhaps the most isolated figure in the modern history of the CCP. And this solitude has led to a series of systemic errors, because no one dares, or is allowed, to tell him he's wrong. One defining trait of Xi's rule is this. If he perceives you as a threat, you fall, swiftly, without warning. That made him terrifyingly effective in the early years, especially during his 2013 anti-corruption campaign. Hundreds of senior officials were purged, from Zhou Yongkang to Sun Zhenkai, even top military brass. No one dared to resist. But that same strategy gutted internal checks and silenced dissent. Xi Jinping is not Mao Zedong 2.0. He's Mao's twisted offspring, born of factional distortion, and is becoming the man who will bury the very system that raised him. By dismantling the CCP's once stabilizing iron triangle of Zhang's clique, the Youth League, and the Princelings, and replacing it with his personal loyalists, Xi has unbalanced the internal machinery that kept the party alive. Today, the entire regime rests on the mindset of one man, someone who is at once supremely confident and profoundly insecure. In this fragile state, the Princelings, those who once sought to preserve the Red Dynasty to protect their wealth and influence, are now being forced to move against Xi to save the system itself. When those who once called him comrade and one of us now quietly conspire for his exit, it's clear. The Xi era is not untouchable. And history will remember one thing above all. Regimes are rarely destroyed by outsiders, but by insiders who rose too far and forgot who they really were. Where is the CCP headed? 4 possible endgames for the Red Dynasty. The question now isn't, how long will Xi Jinping rule, but rather, how much longer can Xi hold on to power before being overthrown from within? Based on current developments inside China's political arena and nearly 80 years of CCP history, there are 4 plausible scenarios. Scenario 1. Xi is forced to step down with honor before the 21st Party Congress. This is the least disruptive outcome, the CCP's preferred way to resolve internal conflict without collapsing the system. Instead of a risky coup or open revolt, rival factions may push Xi to quietly step down, citing health issues or the party's long-term stability. This mirrors what happened near the end of Jiang Zemin's era, when he was pressured to fully exit the military commission and let Hu Jintao govern, despite Jiang's desire to remain in control behind the scenes. For this to happen, 3 conditions must be met. A silent consensus within the Politburo Standing Committee, support from influential figures in the military and security apparatus, and most importantly, assurances that Xi and his family will not face prosecution or retaliation afterward. But here lies the problem. Xi is not one to compromise. He knows that stepping down without holding backstage power could make him a target, just as he once purged Zhou Yongkang, Bo Xilai, and Sun Zhenkai. So while theoretically possible, this outcome is unlikely as long as Xi controls the army and the security state. Scenario 2. Xi is internally isolated and rendered powerless. This is a soft coup. Xi remains in office, but real power is stripped away. Signs of this are already emerging. Some of his hardline economic policies, like the crackdown on private businesses, are quietly being eased. State media is toning down its personality cult coverage and reverting to collective leadership messaging. Loyalists like Kai Chi are appearing less frequently in official broadcasts. Internal academic circles are reviving the idea of collective leadership, a veiled critique of Xi's centralization. If this continues, Xi may still hold the title, but his authority will be fragmented, especially if the Princelings align with remnants of the Jiang and Youth League factions. Xi would become a figurehead in a system slowly returning to factional balance. Scenario 3. Major internal upheaval, political crisis or localized coup. Less likely, but not impossible. A hard break could occur if triggered by prolonged economic downturn that stirs middle-class discontent, escalating unrest in Xinjiang or Tibet, a Taiwan crisis that drags the military into division and infighting. In such a moment, a faction within the army or Ministry of Public Security could move against Xi, isolating him, placing him under house arrest, or forcing his resignation. This would resemble Khrushchev's peaceful yet decisive ousting by Brezhnev in 1964. However, this would require Xi to lose control of the Central Military Commission and would likely need some form of tacit international approval behind the scenes. Scenario 4. No one overthrows Xi, but the system collapses from within. This is what many global analysts fear, that Xi stays in power into the 2030s, clinging to aggressive foreign policy, over-regulated markets, and total political control, pushing China into a full-blown economic and political crisis. If growth stalls, foreign capital flees, public trust erodes, and the debt-laden middle class begins to break, Chinese society may fracture from within. This would be a slow collapse, not a revolution, but a gradual erosion of CCP authority as the layers of power decay. The party wouldn't fall to an outside enemy. It would self-destruct, just as its own warnings have long suggested. If the party perishes, it will be because of internal rot, not external enemies. Where do the Princelings stand in all this? They may not reclaim full power, but they will not allow Xi to monopolize it. Their goal isn't to destroy the system. It protects their assets, status, and networks. But with Xi at the center, everything they've built is at risk, economically and politically. That's why, from the shadows, they're quietly chipping away at the foundations of Xi's throne. Xi Jinping is the perfect embodiment of a political paradox. The man once most underestimated among the Princeling elite is the one who rose to absolute power. Yet it was precisely because he was looked down upon that he struck back, by dismantling the very political lineage that gave him life. Now he stands alone, surrounded by applause that barely masks a sea of quiet hostility. The battle between Xi and the Princelings isn't just a power struggle. It's a purge between past and present, between bloodline and anti-bloodline, between a crowned emperor and the fallen sons of a red aristocracy. And if the Chinese Communist Party ever meets its end, it likely won't come from a street uprising, but from a blood-stained hand behind the curtain, once called comrade, once family, once a drinking companion. Empires rarely die by the sword. They die when trust collapses, from within their most loyal ranks.